Hello, and welcome to Children's Lives Matter, the newest show on the Thriving Women Network series that enlightens, encourages, and empowers parents to reimagine and individualize parenting to make raising emotionally balanced children a reality for everyone. Hi, Vera.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. It's wonderful to be here with you again today.
It's wonderful to be with you as well. How was your Mother's Day?
It was beautiful. And yours?
It was beautiful. It was. My
Wonderful.
son surprised me.
That's great. Well, I'm glad to be here with you on another episode. And we believe that every child is important and deserves to be loved. And for our first time viewers, again, my name is Jessica Sheehan, and I am streaming live from Oregon. I'm with Vera Thomas, one of my co hosts from Ohio. And Vera, what is our theme for this month, please?
Well, our theme for May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, since its inception in 1949, Mental Health Awareness Month has been a cornerstone for addressing the challenges faced by millions of Americans living with mental health conditions. The national movement is dedicated to eradicating stigma, extending support, and fostering public education and advocating for policies that prioritize the well being of individuals and families affected by mental illness.
Mm.
Last week's episode focused on emotional intelligence as the first episode of a four-part series on children's mental health. And it contained information to help parents understand how emotional intelligence can be beneficial. Today's episode is focused on living with someone with a mental health diagnosis, dealing with the person to get help. And our quote for today is a quote to inspire thought for this week with Ruth Ozeki, author of A Tale of the Time Being, a novel. And she says, do all kids have to worry about their parents' mental health? The way society is set up, parents are supposed to be the grown up ones and look after their kids. But a lot of times it's the other way around.
All right, let's watch this clip and learn a little bit more about our topic for today. We'll be right back.
When I was young, I had this very fond memory of my mom leaving us when I was 7 years old, and she actually didn't, come back. Within a month, my dad, in fact, received a divorce letter from her, which devastated him a lot. It was a very tough time because I was heavily bullied. At the point of time, they even called me motherless. And I somehow or other got so affected that, I thought of committing suicide because of that super low self-esteem that I had. There's this inner voice in me that told me that, hey, if you were to actually commit suicide, who's going to look after your family members? So that's the thing that actually sparked me not to do any silly action and to brace myself to become stronger. Nursing actually allows me to understand her. It helps me to build up empathy for her, and also at the same time it helps me to learn how to communicate with her. There's this time where I actually brought her to watch the movies with me, and there was this touching scene that I happened to see her, watching it, and she was touched with tears. And at that point of time, I realized something. I realized that, even though she's suffering from a mental disorder, she also feels the same way as how we will feel, when we watch the movie as well. I believe it is not just for her, any patient who suffers from schizophrenia, but also any patients who are suffering from mental illness as well. It just made me realize that, hey, there are still very human too. The thing is that sometimes when she's off, like when she's having a bad day, okay, she will actually scold me, call me names, ask me to go and die and stuff like that. So instead of feeling so affected by it, I would just let her ventilate. I would just let her ventilate out whatever she feels, and I will empathize with her. For my mom, I choose to look beyond the mental illness. I actually see her as more of a responsibility rather than a liability. So I will tell myself to love her even more, even though she left us. Ma'am, how are you feeling today? Fine. I believe the experience that I have, in fact, helps me a lot in building my resilience, because it helped me to be more positive in life and to actually learn how not to give up. Keep on going, keep on loving, and keep on moving towards the I would say the goal of having zero stigma in mental health and mental wellness and mental illness.
Welcome back to Children's Lives Matter. I'm Jessica Sheehan. Hi, Dixie.
Hey, Jessica. So good to be with you today.
Great to be with you here. So that video, what I really keyed in there, Dixie Ann, was that having empathy is really key. And I think about something that one of my sisters said when she had a small child that was just having a lot of behaviors. And she said, my child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. I think it's the same, right? Having the empathy and just understanding that people are doing the best that they can do. And if we cannot take it personal and we can set those boundaries to protect our own energy, we're going to have a lot better outcomes.
Yes. And what I'm starting to realize, Jessica, just in looking at what the struggles people are going through, somehow it's in that compassion and that empathy, there's a component that seems to be what leads to building resilience. It's having the insight to, this is not happening to me, it's happening for me. How can I make this work for me, for my growth, for my development? And he did a beautiful job of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear a lot about mindset nowadays, Dixie Ann, but I think people don't necessarily know how to put that into practice. So that is a very concrete example that you've just given. I think that's amazing.
Right. It's a skill. It's a skill.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's something we're all on a journey. We're all growing. We're all developing skills. And that's what we're doing here on Children's Lives Matter, is helping to bring in those perspectives and that knowledge and those concrete examples too. So I know that mental illness has carried the stigma in the past, which made it really hard for people to seek assistance. So with May's Mental Health Awareness Month, this is about reducing the stigma and letting people know that help is available. And it's not just about getting medication, but it's also about getting that support that you need. So Dixie Ann, please tell us who we're honoring this week.
It's my pleasure. Today, we're honoring Karen Comber. Karen was raised by a mother who was schizophrenic. And as a young child, Karen became her mother's designated enemy. Karen was the recipient of most of her mother's mental and physical abuse. She withdrew and tried to hide. She wanted to become invisible. As a quiet child who retreated instead of acting out, Karen firmly believes that we must help rescue kids early, or they will live with it forever. Karen is a child advocate who works diligently to bring mental health awareness to children and to schools.
Yes. And I have Karen's book that is titled The Snipers We Couldn't See. And that is her memoir about growing up with her mother. It's a really, really good book, The Snipers We Couldn't See. Now, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, approximately 17.9% of children in the United States have a parent with mental illness. these children are at higher risk for various difficulties, including behavioral problems, emotional challenges, academic struggles, and mental illness can sometimes impair a parent's ability to provide that consistent care. And we know that children need that consistency. It can compromise their ability to provide the emotional support and the stability for their children. And this can lead to disruptions in family life and in relationships. And as Karen Kamba points out, children of mentally ill parents may be quiet. They may be afraid to let others know what happens at home because of that stigma associated with mental illness.
That's right. And Jessica, one of the most pervasive challenges that children of mentally ill parents face is that stigma and the shame associated with mental health illness. In societies where mental health is stigmatized or misunderstood, children often internalize negative feelings about themselves and their families. They may feel isolated and hesitant to seek support, fearing judgment or rejection from others. And that sense of isolation can be compounded by a lack of awareness or understanding among their peers and authority figures. It often leaves children feeling alone in their struggles.
Absolutely, Dixianne. And in many cases, children of mentally ill parents find themselves thrust into these roles that are traditionally reserved for adults. So they may become the caregivers for their parents or their other siblings and shouldering that responsibility that really exceeds their years. And this premature sort of role reversal can rob children of their childhoods, forcing them to mature quickly and really navigate those complex family dynamics with little guidance. And the weight of these responsibilities can take a toll on a child's mental and emotional well-being, leaving them feeling really overwhelmed and depleted. Now, despite these challenges, children of mentally ill parents often demonstrate remarkable resilience and resourcefulness, and they find ways to cope with adversity, and they're drawing strength from their innate resilience and the support of other trusted adults in their lives.
And that support is key. Many parents with mental illness can actually provide nurturing and supportive environments for their children. Access to mental health treatments, social support networks, and parenting resources can really be protective factors. Unfortunately, there's a growing recognition of the need for policies and programs that support parents with mental illness and their families. And that includes initiatives to reduce stigma, to increase access to mental health services, and to actually provide parenting support and education. We're going to take a look at the video and we'll learn how parents with mental health illness can better cope. Before we go, though, Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University. We're an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. And if you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more info, visit our website, www.thrivingwomennetwork.com. We will be right back.
Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Now today we're going to talk about being a parent with a mental illness and how we can be the best that we can be. But before we jump into that, are you new to my channel? Welcome! I put out videos on Mondays and on Thursdays, so make sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on so you don't miss out. But let's jump into this question. Now the question, or questions, because I kind of compiled these because I got a lot about this after I released a video a few weeks ago talking about how to better manage being in a household with a mentally ill parent. And the questions are, I appreciate your videos, Katie, but do you think you could reverse the roles and talk about being a parent with a mental illness? Katie, could you please do a video on how to be a good parent with a severe mental illness? Many times the effects of having a parent with an illness is talked about, but there is limited education for parents on how to do the best to ensure their child is still able to have a secure attachment in healthy relationships. Of course, I'm more than happy to talk about it. And first, I just want you all to know that if you have a mental illness, you can have children. Many people asked about that in the comments, and of course you can. You can do whatever you want. But just like any relationship or choice that we make in our life, we're going to need to be thoughtful about it and make sure that we're able to care for a child. And a mental illness shouldn't stop us from having a family or doing anything that we want, but it does come with the added task of managing our mental health too, which, let's be honest, we should be doing anyways. Now let's get into this question and talk about how we can be amazing parents, even if we have a mental illness. First, it's important to actively engage in treatment, meaning take it seriously and keep your appointments and have them regularly. Work your tools or techniques and make sure you take your medication if that's something that is part of your treatment plan. And the second, work as a family. If you have the option, work together so that if you're having an off day, another member of the family can help out and kind of pick up the slack, and vice versa. Supporting each other can not only make home life more stable for our children, but also more supportive for us as we work to manage our own mental health. 3, have outside support, whether that's an actual support group, friends, family, your therapist, whomever. Make sure that you have a safe space to go and to vent about all that may be going on. We all need that space because, trust me, being a regular person is hard enough. Add in being a parent, that's like dividing our time. We feel pulled all over the place. And on top of that, if we're struggling with a mental illness, we're going to need somewhere to go and talk about it. And the 4th, learn to prioritize. Every day is going to be different. But if we always know that our child and our mental health are our top priorities, it can make other issues more manageable or possibly ignorable if they're not that important, right? Reminding ourselves of what's important to us can help us better navigate through everyday setbacks. And 5, enroll your child in activities. I know it can be hard getting them to and from everything, but this gives them healthy outlets, gives them a chance to make friends and to be active. That also gives us a break while they're at soccer or that art class or learning to play guitar or whatever it may be. That might be the time that we schedule those support groups or another therapy appointment. We just have to make time for ourselves as well as them, and getting them in a lot of activities gets both our needs met. And the next is tend to your basic needs. You've heard me talk about HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? It's part of the DBT workbook and what I work on with my patients. It means if we're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, we are not at our best and we can make really poor decisions and we can be emotionally volatile and all that stuff. So make sure that if you're feeling sick or if you're extra tired, that you take care of yourself. Otherwise, how can we care for someone else? Just making sure that we're eating well, sleeping well, and feeling okay physically can minimize any mental health issues that could pop up. And obviously just gives us, more of those poker chips or more oomph to fight back when maybe our mental health goes awry. And the next tip is to create a safety plan. What should each member of the family do if you go into a manic episode? What if there's a suicide attempt? Put together a plan during a healthy and happy time with your therapist or psychiatrist and talk about it with your child and partner. Note what each person is supposed to do, who they should call, and leave it posted in a place that's easy to access if they forget. I often find that children and our partners in our life struggle during emergencies or crisis situations because we've never talked about it. So take the time and so that everyone knows what to do and it doesn't seem so overwhelming and scary. And my next tip is don't be afraid to communicate about your mental illness with your child. Things are scarier when we don't understand them. So make sure you let your child know what you're struggling with. Give it a name. Talk about your symptoms. Talk about how it feels for you and what you're doing to get better. And assure them that it's not their fault at all. We know that when children aren't given proper explanations, they make up things to fill in the blanks to try to make sense of it. So give them all the information that they need so that they don't have to make it up. And this is also a great way to let them know early on that mental health isn't something to be scared to talk about.
Okay, welcome back to Children's Lives Matter, however and wherever you're joining us. I'm Jessica Sheehan here with one of my co-hosts, Dixie Ann Harris-Gordon. And this is really great advice for anyone struggling to balance their mental health with raising children. Many of us know that when our child becomes dysregulated emotionally, it can be challenging in the best of circumstances. And then when you add a layer of mental dysfunction on top of that, the complexity and difficulty of the situation can really multiply exponentially.
I mean, experiencing their child's dysregulation can be profoundly challenging for parents with mental illness, eliciting a complex array of emotions and struggles. That heightened stress and anxiety stemming from their mental health challenges can intensify when faced with their child's intense emotions and behaviors. Amidst this turmoil, parents may grapple with feelings of inadequacy and guilt, questioning their ability to provide stability and support for their child. Maintaining those consistent boundaries and responding calmly can prove daunting, as their own emotional fluctuations may interfere with effective parenting. Those moments of dysregulation can strain the parent-child relationship, triggering past traumas and complicating their communication.
Yes. And, Dixie Ann, parents can overcome these challenges of experiencing their child's dysregulation by prioritizing their own self-care, by seeking support, developing effective coping strategies. And it's essential for parents to recognize and acknowledge their emotional triggers and their limitations, to practice self-compassion and forgiveness when they struggle, to respond to the child's dysregulation. We're all human, so seeking therapy or counseling can provide a safe space for parents to explore their feelings of inadequacy or if there's guilt, while also learning the practical strategies for managing stress, regulating their own emotions, and then also building that support network, like we've mentioned, family members, other parents who understand their situation. That can offer invaluable encouragement and solidarity. It's so important. Now, additionally, learning and practicing techniques for emotional regulation, such as deep breathing exercises, mindfulness meditation, these things can help parents maintain a sense of calm and perspective during those challenging moments with their child. And by prioritizing their own mental and emotional well-being and seeking support from others, and developing these effective coping strategies, parents can navigate their child's dysregulation moments with the greater resilience and strength. And that ultimately is fostering a healthier and more supportive parent-child relationship. Back to you, Dixie Ann.
Thanks, Jessica. And for those of you just joining us, we are talking about the challenges of children who have a parent with a mental health diagnosis as part of our Mental Health Awareness Month. During our commercial break, we'll learn about the normalization of speaking about mental health. Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit our website, www.thrivingwomennetwork.com. We will be right back.
You can't tell how someone feels just by looking at them or what they share online. To the outside world, our lives may look perfect, even if in reality they aren't. I'm always worrying about doing well at school, and with the end of year test coming up, I'm not sure how much longer I can cope. My thoughts swarm around my head, sometimes keeping me up all night. Some days it's just all too much, and I feel like I'm lost in space. When I did badly on one of my tests, I just about kept it together until I got home. Then I broke down crying in front of my mum. She listened for a bit, and then she told me that, just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. She then said that feeling down, angry, and stressed is a normal part of life, just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. These are everyday feelings. Good mental health means experiencing negative emotions. It's not always about being happy. Mum can relate to the feelings of stress. So when Mum suggested I take a break from everything and do something I enjoy, I actually took her advice. So I made myself a hot chocolate, snuggled up in a duvet and watched a film. And you know what? Afterwards I felt so much better. Mum should take her own advice.
Most of us only ever share the good things. We don't like to share how we really feel. Every morning when I wake up, negative thoughts stream through my head. Getting out of bed and pretending I'm okay takes all the energy I have. As the day goes on, the negative thoughts turn from a stream into a river. The water rushes through my head so loudly it's hard to concentrate in lessons. And some days it's so bad it feels like a waterfall that's trying to pull me over the edge. Everything is so overwhelming. I didn't think my friends would understand if I told them how down I was feeling. But when Sasha opened up to me about how stressed she was feeling, I told her. I wasn't sure how to bring up how I'd been feeling, so I started by saying that I didn't feel like myself. Just her listening made me feel like she understood. She told me some things that had helped her, so I tried them too, but it didn't make much of a difference. Even when I tried to be around my friends, I felt alone. The things I used to enjoy weren't fun anymore.
I was really worried about Andre and not sure what to do. He was quiet and wasn't hanging out with us like he used to. So I asked our head of year for some advice. He suggested I get Andre to speak to him since his negative feelings weren't going away.
I didn't want to speak to our head of year, but I also didn't want to keep feeling so down, so I went. He said that sometimes we have overwhelming feelings that can be more intense than our everyday feelings. These feelings hang around for a long time and change the way we feel, think, and behave. They can stop us doing what we want to in life. That's what I was going through. He also said that if we're physically unwell, we let people know, we ask for help. It should be no different with mental health. Sometimes our overwhelming feelings are brought on because of things in our life. Sometimes they happen for no reason at all. After hearing this, I felt much less alone and it felt good to talk. Scientists have found exercise can help when you're feeling low, so our head of year encouraged me to sign up to the school football club, which Sasha was already in. I still have days when the river is there, but now I'm beginning to understand my mental health. I'm learning how to cope. Our head of year reminded me that my friends, family, teachers, and lots of others at school are there to help just as much as he is. I had no idea the people around me could be so understanding. And while it's not always easy to talk about my mental health, the person I'm talking to might be able to help. If you don't feel like talking, that's fine. You could try writing, sports, reading, art, music, playing with your pet, whatever makes you feel better.
If you're the person someone talks to when they're struggling, just listen with no pressure or judgments. You don't have to have the answer. If you feel unsure about anything, you can speak to a trusted adult.
Welcome back to Children's Lives Matter. I'm Jessica Sheehan, and I'm here with one of my co-hosts, Vera Thomas. And our episode today is, again, in support of Mental Health Awareness Month. So in today's deep dive segment, we will look at mental health awareness and how important it is to break down the barriers and remove the stigma associated with getting help. Now, mental health issues encompass a spectrum of conditions, ranging from common diagnoses like depression to more intricate illnesses such as schizophrenia or psychosis. And brain wiring and brain chemistry differ in each of us. Sometimes that wiring can get crossed. So it's no different than going to a doctor with a minor health issue. Seeking help for mental illness concerns is just as important and valid as seeking help for those physical ailments. Now, just as we would consult a medical professional for a physical ailment, it's crucial that we reach out to mental health professionals for support and guidance when facing challenges related to mental well-being. And by seeking the appropriate treatment and support, individuals can effectively address and manage their mental health concerns, leading to that improved overall well-being and quality of life. Over to you, Vera.
And, being able to talk about it, if you can talk about it, you can handle it. And that video was just beautiful in showing how to be able to communicate and let people know what you're feeling. And for those who are listening, to truly listen without giving their opinions or feedback. Just listen. Sometimes that's all it takes for people to feel secure. And in reducing the stigma of seeking mental health treatment is crucial for promoting widespread acceptance and accessibility to care. One effective approach involves education and awareness campaigns that challenge misconceptions and stereotypes surrounding mental illness. By providing accurate information about the causes, symptoms, and treatments of mental health conditions, these campaigns help to normalize discussions about mental health and encourage individuals to seek help without fear of judgment or discrimination. During our break, we will learn about stigma. Children Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media, network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit our website at www.thrivingwomennetwork.com. We'll be right back.
Have you ever felt left out or judged by people because they thought you were different from them? Maybe you've been discriminated against. How did this affect you? Maybe you felt misunderstood, embarrassed, alone, or even afraid. That is what stigma might feel like. So what is stigma? Stigma is a set of negative beliefs and prejudices about a group of people. Stigma also includes negative behaviors towards groups of people. Many people face stigma because of their race, religion, sexuality, gender, economic situation, and a variety of other things. People living with mental illnesses often face stigma and discrimination. This can make them feel ashamed, hopeless, distressed, reluctant to get help or accept help, and feel like they are to blame for their illness. In fact, almost half of Canadians thought people use the term mental illness as an excuse for bad behavior, and 27% say they would be fearful of being around someone who has a serious mental illness. Why is that? Well, many years ago, mental illnesses were not well understood. We didn't know how mental illnesses influenced a person's brain or affected their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. People with mental illnesses were not treated with the support they needed and were considered outcasts or even dangerous. To end stigma, people need to understand and accept that mental illnesses are like any other health conditions and need the right treatment. We would never say to someone, just think positively and your diabetes will go away. But how many times have you heard, try to be happy, think positively, don't be so depressed. You have so many good things in your life. Now let's look at an example of how stigma can hurt someone. Stefan is a first-year university student. He likes his program and has some new friends. However, Stefan feels stressed and overwhelmed by all of his schoolwork and being away from home. He's not feeling like himself, and most days he doesn't want to get out of bed. He's afraid his friends will think he's weak if he tells them, and he doesn't want anyone seeing him at the clinic, so he doesn't reach out for help on campus. His feelings get worse, and he's having a hard time staying in school. Like with Stefan, the stigma people experience often prevents them from getting help and support from family, friends, and professionals. We know from research that the sooner someone gets help, the better the outcome will be. This is true for all health conditions, including mental illnesses. So, how can we reduce stigma and help people like Stefan? 1. Think about your own feelings about mental illnesses. Do you have biases or judge people? 2. Be aware of language. Avoid using words that can be hurtful, like psycho or crazy. 3. Think about and discuss what you see in the media. How people with mental illnesses are shown in the media is not always accurate or fair. 4. Learn more about mental illnesses. Check out trusted websites like the Canadian Mental Health Association or Bell Let's Talk. 5. Explore relationships with people in your life who have mental health challenges and illnesses. After watching this video, make a list of ways you can help yourself and your communities become more accepting of all people, including those of us living with mental illness. Think about one thing you can do now to help reduce stigma around mental illness. It could be a small thing, like not using hurtful and labeling words. It could be reaching out to someone who you think might be struggling and encouraging them to get help. It could be sharing your own experience living with a mental illness with someone you trust, if that feels comfortable and safe for you. All of these things help reduce stigma and keep it from stopping others and ourselves from getting help when needed.
Welcome back. I'm Vera Thomas, and I'm with Dixie Ann. How are you again? Good to see you again.
Right, Sarah, good to see you too.
And you know, that video was so thought-provoking. And just think, if more people understood how important it is to eliminate the stigma and use the tools that's being suggested in this video to help someone in a mental health situation. Another important thing to do is to have open and friendly talks about mental health in different places like schools, workplaces, and communities. When we make places where people feel safe to share their feelings and get help, it can make it easier for them to get treatment when they need it. Also, when people share their own stories of getting better and being strong, it shows that getting help for mental health is brave and not something to be ashamed of.
That's those discussions that we need to have. Promoting parity between mental health and physical health care is also essential for reducing that stigma. And that involves ensuring that mental health services are readily available, affordable, and integrated into primary care settings. When we treat mental health with the same level of importance and urgency as physical health, we normalize seeking help for mental health concerns. And in this way, we encourage individuals to prioritize their own mental well-being.
That is so true. And parents should understand that talking openly about mental health at home helps create a supportive environment where teenagers feel safe talking about their problems. This helps them understand that they can get help when they need it. When parents encourage conversations about feelings and stress and mental well-being, it helps their teens learn how to deal with tough situations and become stronger.
That's right. They have openly addressing mental health. They reduce that stigma that surrounds it. And this normalization can actually empower those teens to recognize when they need support and to seek help without that feeling of shame or embarrassment. Early intervention and access to mental health resources are critical in preventing suicide, and parents play a crucial role in facilitating this access. Additionally, parents who are knowledgeable about mental health can recognize warning signs of distress in their teenagers and intervene before a crisis occurs. They can also model healthy behaviors and attitudes towards seeking help. This can positively influence their teens' attitudes and actions regarding mental health. And during our break, we will learn and explore mental health conversations. Children's Lives Matter, as a reminder, is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more info, visit our website at www.thrivingwomennetwork.com. We'll be right back.
May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
And on that point, we are drawing attention to just how common mental illnesses are here in the U.S. In fact, the CDC, which counts this kind of thing up, says more than half of all Americans will be diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point in their lifetime. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has said that global prevalence of anxiety and depression increased by 25 percentage points during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And joining us now is therapist and author of the Dear Therapist column at The Atlantic, Lori Gottlieb. She's also co-host of the Dear Therapist podcast and author of the book, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. Lori, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. So, let's start just about talking about the importance of Mental Health Awareness Month and having a set time to allow people to really acknowledge the prevalence of mental illnesses. So tell us how you're marking this month.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we talk about what we're going through, because I think so many people who are struggling feel like they're struggling alone. So I'm giving people a challenge every week. And this week's challenge is I want them to really listen to somebody, because I think that we need to learn not only to reach out, but how to listen when people do reach out to us.
Lori, there have been a number of high-profile suicides this year, as there are every year. And I'd love to hear you talk about whether or not there's a connection between those public events and trends with people who are not celebrities.
Yeah, I think that what happens is when you see this happen with celebrities, I think that people realize that something that they've been struggling with is not unique to them. And so these tragic events, I hope will help people to reach out when they need help. And I think that the fact that people are talking about the real struggles that celebrities are having just makes it people more able to reach out.
Hey, Lori, I remember on the morning show we had Congressman Jamie Raskin on, who lost his son to suicide. And we asked him if he had any advice for parents. And this was an adult son, an adult child. And he said his one regret was, and he's since learned, that he should have been frank about the word suicide with his son. Rather than saying, "Are you okay?" he should have said, "Are you having thoughts of suicide?" Is that good advice? Is he on the right track there?
That's fantastic advice. People feel like if I bring up the word suicide, it will plant the idea in their head. Could not be farther from the truth. The truth is that it's a relief to people who are thinking about that, because now they know that they're allowed to talk about it.
But what about a lot of parents who struggle, Lori, with the question about how to talk to their teens, for instance, about it? Because, we hear that there's such a thing as copycat suicides, right? That when it happens at a college or a high school, the fear is that other young people will follow suit. So how do you balance talking about it openly with making sure that, other teenagers don't have that same idea?
Mm-hmm. People who are contemplating suicide are in a lot of pain. And I think that when someone opens up the conversation and uses the word suicide, people realize, they understand how much pain I'm in and how dire this situation is. And they're generally very, very relieved, especially to talk to their parents about it, because teenagers don't know who to reach out to. And when they know they can trust their parent to handle the information and to help them, they're going to feel very relieved by that.
That's really great advice. Thank you, Lori. And then also, with kids, but also with friends, there's a fine line between being encouraging and helping people, tough it out or get back on their feet. And then when it becomes not encouragement because they've got more than just a one down day, it's something deeper. How does a person know the line there between helping a person's resilience and pointing them toward maybe they should talk to somebody, to use the title of your book?
I think that if somebody is struggling on an ongoing basis and it's not getting better, that they definitely should talk to someone. And there's no stigma around that at all. I think therapy is like getting a really good second opinion on your life from someone who's not already in your life. And whether you're struggling with something like suicidal thoughts, or you're feeling sad, or you're feeling anxious, whatever it is, there's no hierarchy of pain. If you are struggling with something, you should reach out and you should talk to someone. And sometimes that person is a therapist.
Wow. When you consider the second cause of death for 6-year-olds to 34-year-olds is suicide, this is such an important topic. And these videos that we're showing, parents need to really check this show out. Well, welcome back to Children's Lives Matter. If you're watching the show, you know that May is Mental Health Month, Awareness Month. And today we're here to equip parents and caregivers with an understanding of how mental health affects families. We aim to empower families to have open conversations about ensuring the well-being of their children, including understanding the importance of speaking out about mental health. So Dixie Ann, we opened this show with a discussion of how children can be affected by a parent with mental health diagnoses. We also understand that parents who have children with mental health diagnoses need support. This show is really about normalizing that conversation and letting people know that their brain is an organ just like other organs, and sometimes it may need doctor's attention.
Today, we're going to do something a little different as our scheduled guest had a death in the family and could not attend today. So we will have all three hosts on the screen to do a panel discussion. Vera?
So Jessica, let me ask you, in your former job as a forensic interviewer, did you ever encounter a quiet child, one who is afraid to share what is going on at home? How do you get them to talk?
Yes, that's a great question, Vera. So as a forensic interviewer, I worked at a child abuse intervention center, and I talked to kids when there was a concern about abuse or neglect going on in the home, whether those concerns were raised by law enforcement or by child protection services. And I often did encounter this with children. Now, one of the things that was key about the way that I conducted a forensic interview was that I did this privately with just myself and the child in the room. So mom, caregiver, nobody else was there and nobody else was watching at the time. So the child was told who was watching and who was not watching, and it was very transparent. The other thing that I did was I let them know in the introduction that it was a safe place to talk and that nothing that they said would shock me. Nothing would upset me. Nothing would make me think badly about someone else. So children often get this idea that something's off or something's wrong, and they're very guarded about their home life if they have a parent that's experiencing mental illness or there's abuse going on in the home, and they're very aware of this. And so building rapport with that child and being able to get them to open up was very, very key. And I went about it in very specific ways that were underscored by research, and that model was empirically studied type of model. So anyway, the process of talking to them was one where I would ask them open-ended questions, and really by listening and not reacting at all, I was able to get them to share with me if there was something going on, and often the worst, most painful, scary moments of their life, and in great detail.
Wow, that's amazing. And being able to communicate and make them feel safe is so important. Kudos to you. And let me ask you, Dixie Ann, in your opinion, what is the best way for the U.S. to destigmatize mental illness?
Well, first of all, we need to talk. We need to talk. We need to have those open and honest conversations about mental health to take that sting and the stigma off of the topic. And we need to educate. I think as an educator, I have always believed that the way to insert change into society and to influence a culture is through education. We need to go into our schools, educate our young minds, bring in parents, welcome the community, have open forums so that those discussions have a place to take place. And then we need to be safe spaces in ourselves for those conversations to be executed. We need to approach mental health discourse without judgment, with compassion, and with a willingness to learn and discover and in the end to help. If we pay attention, continued attention to the mental health of children and to our young people, that's priority. We need to do that because young people with mental struggles, they have a harder time with completing educational goals, with assimilating into workspace. So repercussions of their struggles will be seen in our society beyond just their homes. And I think at the end, it's something we said earlier, Vera, we need greater access to affordable health, to coaching, to therapy, whatever it takes, it needs to be accessible for all.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dixie Ann. And I want to ask a question of Vera now. Vera, what about you? Have you experienced a situation with a quiet child, and how did you get them to open up?
Yes. I work with parents and their children. And an example that comes to my mind, I was doing some work in a school with some kids and their parents. And this one little boy, during the course of the session, under his voice, he said, "I can't stand to look at myself in the mirror." And I said, "What did you say?" And he said, "I can't stand to look at myself in the mirror." That was heart-wrenching for me to hear a child say that. His mother was not in his life. His father was incarcerated, and his older brother was taking care of him. And in this case, how the parents, the mothers, rallied around him and showed him so much love. But what was even more impactful was how the other children rallied around him and showed him so much love. And in working with him individually, being able to let him know, this is a safe space, we love you, and to give him affirmations and have him start speaking them to me out loud. Let me hear, what are you saying? What are you saying? And so helping them to look at a different perspective, without telling them, but to help pull it out of them, which is what coaching is all about. Just helping people pull their answers and find those answers within themselves. And so I just think that's just so important that we listen and let them know we hear you, we see you, we feel you. And that's just so important. It's so important. So
Thank you for sharing that, Vera. It's always wonderful to be able to hear from our co-hosts. And I know both of you have a wealth of information and skills around working with children and supporting families. And I think that's a blessing for all of us to be able to come together and to share these things with our viewers and to help to encourage, enlighten, and empower parents, educators, communities, and to reimagine that we can all raise more emotionally intelligent children, right?
We've got to do it. We've got to do it. It's so important.
Mm-hmm. A lot is riding on it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So have either of you encountered other obstacles or resistance to your advocacy work or stigmas around mental illness? And how have you navigated the challenges that you've experienced? Dixie, Vera?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think navigating it is pretty much what I shared earlier. It's about education. A lot of times when parents come to me with concerns about their children, at this stage, it's usually anxiety issues, OCD challenges. And it's really, from the parents' perspective, they're scared. They're not sure what's going on with their child. They can pick up that something is off, not sure what it is. So you have to go in there with compassion. You have to go in there with knowledge. We have to educate. And you have to allow for the children to be able to have those safe spaces to share as well, to talk about what's going on with them. Oftentimes, because they're so little, they do not have the vocabulary. They can't even translate to us what's the emotion they're feeling. So we have to have those radars out to be aware, to be compassionate, and again, to educate, because that's what's missing in a lot of cases.
Yes. And I have a family that I'm working with right now. The mother has major health issues that really impact her relationship with her children. And her little boy has experienced being bullied in school. And in working with him, the first thing that was necessary was to help him recognize his value.
Yeah.
And how important he was. And again, I believe in affirmations. And plus, I've used some PQ techniques with them to help them relax and just better understand each other. And so being able to talk with them individually, but then together, giving them ways and helping them to look at ways that they can improve what's going on, even with a very sick mother. That and it's affected her mental health, because she has major health issues. And so
Mm,
being able to understand and her kids understanding the impact their mother has and the impact that they have on their mother,
right.
the dynamics is just to see the change, to see that light go on, to see them like the little boy after working with him a couple of weeks. I asked him, so what's the bully situation like in school? And he's like, they're not bullying me anymore. And they're not bullying him because he took back his power. And so that's the other thing, teaching kids to take back their power and
Yes.
to recognize their strength and their abilities is so important. And so, being able to do that is very much a part of what all of this is about.
It
Mm.
is. It is. Jessica, if you had one piece of advice for family members to shift them from judgment into acceptance of brain dysfunction or differences, what would you say?
Mm. I think that it's all about communication, Dixie Ann. I think that there's space for everyone. And if we can be open about what our challenges are and how we do best, then we can navigate pretty much anything. And so I think it's not about labels. It's not about, I have this diagnosis or that diagnosis. It's about, here's how I can be at my best and here's how I can do well. And just having those open and frank conversations like we've touched on today, so it's not a stigma, it's not something we're afraid of, and just being able to have these discussions, that's really going to set a tone that everything is going to be okay and we can all work together to support one another. So the communication and building the empathy and keeping that dialogue up with our children, that is the biggest key that I would say.
Absolutely.
It's most definitely. Thank you so much, ladies, to my wonderful co-host. Thank you. Your heart for children, for their parents, it's so evident by the way we answer these questions. Thank you for showing up.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. And so we want to also thank our Prime viewers from around the world. And thank you for supporting today's mission to enlighten, encourage, and empower parents, communities, and educators to have conversations with children on mental health issues. And you can support us by joining our Facebook group, Thriving Women TV, and telling a friend. You can also watch our episodes live and then also on demand at our Facebook group on e360tv.com and on our website, thrivingwomennetwork.com.
Children's Lives Matter is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN produces the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit our website. You may also want to tune into our other show, Every Child Can Learn, on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I am Dixie Ann Harris Gordon.
Thank you, and thank you, Dixie Ann. And I'm Jessica Sheehan, and we also have Vera Thomas here with us today. We have so many shows within the Thriving Women Network, and I know you just mentioned Every Child Can Learn on Wednesdays. We actually have 8 shows in total right now that enlighten, encourage, and empower women and all of our viewers on so many topics. So all of our shows across the board are all celebrating and having themes and topics that are in support of May's Mental Health Awareness Month, which is so crucial. And so I think that this episode has done a great job. Now, Vera, do you think that we have upheld our mission to enlighten, encourage, and empower parents today?
I think we did a great job of that, especially with the videos that if parents will listen and watch the videos that are on our shows and the conversations and gain some insight, some knowledge, and some action steps that you can actually take.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for being here, however and wherever you watched us.
Yes.